So far, we've seen how compound interest can become one of the most powerful tools for building wealth. Unfortunately, the very same principle can also work against us. When we invest wisely, compound interest allows our money to grow over time. But when we borrow money at high interest rates, compound interest begins working for the lender instead of for us. In this chapter, we'll look at how credit cards, consumer debt, student loans, and other forms of borrowing can quietly undermine our financial future. As Mayer Amschel Rothschild reminded us, those who understand compound interest earn it. Those who do not understand it pay it. Let's see what that means in practical terms. Earlier in this program, we quoted Mayer Amschel Rothschild. Those who understand compound interest earn it, and those who do not understand it pay it. Now let's see what a credit card company earns from compound interest. The average credit card interest rate in the United States is approximately 21% per year. It may be different where you live, but wherever you are, credit card interest rates are often very high. At 21%, it's no wonder we see banks and other lenders with their names on high-rise buildings, local branches throughout our communities, and advertisements everywhere promoting their credit cards. They are earning enormous amounts of money from those interest charges. Consider this. Warren Buffett, widely regarded as one of the greatest investors of all time, averaged approximately 18% per year over 40 years. Most professional investors earn less than 5% annually, yet many credit card companies charge around 21% interest. In our opinion, that is excessive, highly exploitative, and should be limited by law. But it isn't. Now let's look at a credit card balance of $3,000. Assume no additional purchases are made and no monthly payments are made. At an annual interest rate of 21%, compounded daily, the $3,000 balance grows to $5,631 in just 3 years. The interest alone is $2,631, nearly equal to the original balance. Remember the rule of 72. 72 divided by 21 equals approximately 3.4 years. In other words, the bank doubles its money in just over 3 years. Now ask yourself this. If a $3,000 balance grows this much, what happens to someone carrying $10,000 or even more in credit card debt? Here is the graphical representation of that same $3,000 credit card balance. Notice that the amount originally borrowed remains the same, while the total amount owed continues to grow because of compound interest. From the lender's point of view, $3,000 becomes approximately $5,631 in just 3 years. This graph helps us visualize what we discussed on the previous slide. The same principle of compound interest that can build wealth for an investor can also work against a borrower. When you're earning compound interest, time is your friend. When you're paying compound interest at high interest rates, time works against you. That is why it's so important to understand the difference between using compound interest to build wealth and allowing it to build debt. Now let's look at a larger credit card balance. Suppose you owe $10,000 on a credit card. We'll assume an average annual interest rate of 21.47%, compounded daily, and that no additional payments are made beyond the minimum required. Using the compound interest calculator, that $10,000 balance grows to approximately $29,347 after 5 years. The interest portion alone is approximately $19,347. That works out to an average interest cost of about $3,869 per year, or approximately $322 each month. Think back to our earlier example. We showed that investing approximately $350 per month over time could put you on a path toward millionaire status. Instead of investing that money for your future, someone carrying this credit card balance is paying nearly the same amount every month to the credit card company in interest. Now consider what happens going forward. Once the balance has grown to nearly $29,300, the annual interest alone is more than $6,000. Credit card companies often encourage consumers to finance vacations and other purchases by offering airline miles or loyalty points. But stop and think about it. How well does someone understand compound interest if they're willing to add thousands of dollars of new debt at more than 21% interest just to earn a few reward points? Here is the 5-year graph from the credit card company's point of view. Notice how the gap between the original $10,000 balance and the total amount owed becomes larger each year. That's the effect of compound interest working against the borrower. In just 5 years, a $10,000 balance grows to approximately $29,348. That's nearly 3 times the original amount borrowed. This graph reinforces an important lesson. When you carry high interest debt, you're putting compound interest to work for the lender instead of for yourself. Whenever possible, your goal should be to eliminate high interest debt as quickly as you can and then redirect those same monthly dollars towards saving and investing for your own future. Although this program is intended for an international audience, the statistics on this slide relate specifically to the United States. If you live outside the United States, you can easily search for similar debt statistics in your own country. While the numbers may differ, we believe the overall trends are likely to be similar. Let's take a look at the scale of consumer debt in the United States. Total consumer debt is approximately $17.3 trillion. To put that into perspective, $1 trillion is 1,000 billion dollars. Mortgage debt accounts for approximately $11.4 trillion. While that is an enormous amount, it is at least backed by real property, including millions of homes. Student loan debt totals approximately $1.6 trillion. Auto loans account for another $1.6 trillion. Credit card debt exceeds $1.1 trillion. Other forms of consumer debt total approximately $1.9 trillion. Altogether, the average household carries more than $103,000 in debt. These are staggering numbers. Over the next several slides, we'll examine each of these categories more closely and discuss what they mean from the perspective of compound interest. Student loan debt in the United States now totals approximately $1.6 trillion. That is $1,600 billion, a staggering sum and, in our opinion, one of the most dangerous forms of consumer debt. Throughout all of our educational programs, we have carefully avoided making specific investment recommendations. In this section on personal finance, we are simply illustrating how compound interest can work for us when we invest and how brutally it can work against us when we borrow. When it comes to student loans, it is easy for a college student to be attracted by what appears to be a relatively low interest rate, perhaps around 6%, especially since the money is being used to pay for a college education. Consider that approximately 17% of Americans still have outstanding student loan debt. Students graduate owing, on average, about $33,000. Many owe well over $75,000, and some medical school graduates owe $300,000 or more. Unlike many other forms of debt, student loans generally cannot be discharged through bankruptcy. The government is the original lender, but delegates loan servicing to private companies. In our opinion, some of those servicing practices can make repayment extremely difficult for borrowers. Here is our one and only opinion in this entire program on personal finance. Do not borrow any money for student loans. If you are already in college and borrowing money, don't borrow any more. College education is not what it used to be. Over the past many years, college tuition has increased by approximately 12% annually, while inflation has averaged only about 3% per year. As a result, many 18-year-olds are making financial decisions that can adversely affect them for decades. If you'd like to learn more about this topic, we recommend spending about 30 minutes watching Last Week Tonight with John Oliver on student loans. We think you'll find it both informative and eye-opening. Let's shift our attention from consumer debt to government debt. To appreciate where we are today, it helps to understand the first 200 years of United States history. Consider everything the country experienced from 1776 through 1976. The War of Independence, the War of 1812, the Mexican-American War, the Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War. Those were only the major wars. As we'll see on the next slide, there were also numerous economic recessions during that same 200-year period. Keep those events in mind as we compare the nation's debt over its first 2 centuries with what has happened in the decades that followed. In addition to those major wars, the United States experienced 32 recessions during its first 200 years as a nation. Those included the financial panic of 1882 and, most significantly, the Great Depression from 1929 through 1939. Now think about everything the country endured during those first 2 centuries, all of those wars, all of those recessions. Yet by 1976, after 200 years as a nation, the total national debt stood at approximately $620 billion. In other words, after 2 centuries of wars, economic downturns, and national challenges, the United States had accumulated a national debt of just over $1/2 of $1 trillion. Now, with that historical perspective in mind, let's look at what happened over the next 50 years. Now let's consider what happened over the next 50 years. In 1970, the national debt was approximately $382 billion. By 1975, it had grown to approximately $500 billion. After 200 years as a nation, we measured our national debt in billions of dollars. 25 years later, by the year 2000, the national debt had grown to approximately $5.6 trillion. Just 23 years after that, it had reached approximately $34.1 trillion. That works out to nearly $100,000 for every man, woman, and child in the United States, or nearly $400,000 for a family of 4. In 2024, the annual interest on the national debt was approximately $870 billion. For 2025, that figure is projected to be approximately $951 billion, nearly $1 trillion in interest alone. Looking ahead to 2034, annual interest payments are projected to reach approximately $1.6 trillion, up from just $210 billion in 2016. Over the next decade, total interest expense alone is projected to exceed $12.4 trillion. Thomas Jefferson wanted a provision in the United States Constitution that would have limited government spending to the amount of revenue received through taxes and other sources. That provision was never adopted. In our opinion, these numbers are mind-numbing, if they were not so terrifying. Just think about it. The first $1 trillion of tax revenue each year goes simply to pay the interest on the national debt. Let's consider some of the implications of what we've just discussed. According to current projections, Medicare will not be able to pay full benefits after 2031. That means one or more things will have to happen. Taxes may have to increase, benefits may have to be reduced, the age at which benefits begin may have to be delayed, or some combination of those changes may occur. For Social Security, the projected date is approximately 2 years later. Again, one or more of the following will likely have to happen. Benefits may be reduced, taxes may be increased, or the eligibility age may be delayed. Now think about the broader implications. The interest on the national debt is approaching $1 trillion per year. Medicare and Social Security are both under financial pressure. If you are a younger person, perhaps 45 years old or younger, more and more of your tax dollars may go toward paying interest on the national debt and funding programs from which you may receive fewer benefits than previous generations. What do you think taxes and government benefits will look like over the years ahead? These are important questions, and they illustrate how the long-term effects of compound interest extend far beyond our personal finances. Let's bring the discussion back to personal finance. Here we are looking at auto loans, which now total approximately $1.6 trillion in the United States. Everyone with an outstanding auto loan is paying interest. For borrowers with excellent credit purchasing a new vehicle, interest rates may range from approximately 6.7% to 14.1%. For used vehicles, borrowers with average credit may pay anywhere from approximately 9.33% to more than 21%. One of the most common questions borrowers ask is, what will my monthly payment be? Lenders understand that question very well. To keep monthly payments relatively low while maintaining high interest income, many lenders now offer loan terms of 6 or even 7 years, including on used vehicles. Suppose the average interest rate is 14%. Using the rule of 72, 72 divided by 14 equals approximately 5.1 years. That means the lender doubles its money in just over 5 years. With approximately $1.6 trillion in outstanding auto loans, That's a tremendous amount of interest being paid by borrowers. Once again, we see Rothschild's observation at work. Those who understand compound interest earn it. Those who do not understand it pay it. Now let's look at two more categories of consumer debt. In the United States, credit card debt totals approximately $1.11 trillion. The average interest rate is about 21.47%, with some cards charging as much as 26.8%. Using the rule of 72, 72 divided by 21.47 equals approximately 3.3 years. In other words, at that interest rate, lenders double their money in just over 3 years. On more than $1 trillion of outstanding credit card debt, lenders collect hundreds of billions of dollars in interest every year. That amount of interest income is comparable to the gross domestic product of some smaller countries. Now consider other forms of consumer debt. These include payday loans, consumer finance loans, store financing, and similar types of borrowing. Interest rates in this category commonly range from approximately 11.7% to 36%, and in some cases, predatory loans can exceed 150% annually. Payday loans, for example, may charge the equivalent of 4% per week, more than 200% per year. The unfortunate reality is that those who are least able to afford these loans often pay the highest interest rates. In our opinion, this is one of the harsh realities of the consumer credit system. Once again, we see the principle we've discussed throughout this course. Those who understand compound interest earn it. Those who do not understand it pay it.